Yeah, I'm making this video hopefully to support a future video I plan on making for the Walking the Walk channel. And so basically what I'm working on is a way to help people organize themselves, and also creating some text assets that would facilitate directing people to videos on relevant subjects, where people disagree, like in a sense trying to organize some of the content and the argument, and using it in such a way as to only direct people there if necessary, to see where we agree, and only start arguing where we have to argue, and about the subjects that we're really arguing about, to try to boil down the disagreement to the root issues that that constitute the disagreement. Because sometimes you can disagree about an issue out here, and you're really disagreeing about some kernel, some fundamental perception, and so you never really get to that, and you just keep arguing around in circles in this outer fluff, and you never really get to the core disagreement that is really the fundamental cause that just perpetuates the disagreement. For example, somebody could be a staunch capitalist, and so any reforms that sound at all communist or socialist are going to be rejected. But you have to really get to that source perception that all capitalism is sacred before you can even bother arguing anything in the periphery. You have to get past the blind spot where they're not even open to the discussion, without pigeonholing or red baiting or whatever. So anyway, I don't want to get lost in the details. So I will post in the box 25 questions. So that's what I've started with. I'll add more, of course, and add, refine them. And so I'm asking you, especially the people who don't make videos, here's a chance to contribute, to first work on playlists, because that's something that's going to be important. If some of these issues are important to you, maybe make up a couple of playlists with videos that you think are really good on one side of the subject. Rank them in the playlist in order of their importance as you see it, or their significance, or their strength as an argument. At least attempt to do that. And also, if you want to provide some more questions, I would appreciate it. Questions you think that are that get to the philosophical core issues of what a person believes, and also questions about economics and reform and the political structure and politics. All that kind of stuff is worthy of inclusion. The idea is to be as concise and explicit and clear as possible. And if further, on some of these issues, I've posted one of the questions on what is basically my idea for eliminating the geographic bias in voting districts and allowing people to vote their ideology rather than their geography. Obviously, that proposal would need explanation for somebody who's never heard of it before. So some questions will require links to more information on the subject if a person needs it. But kind of keep it that way. Keep the initial question simple, and if a person needs explanation, let them go to a link to receive that. So anyway, the idea is to both. It'll be like a test. I plan on doing a website. I'll put up a website with the questions. The idea will be like people that you get exactly the same answers to the questions. Maybe that would go to a message board for each scenario, each permutation. And those people could post a link to their channel, because those people would all be of the same ideological perspective, presumably. Say if there's 100 questions in the end, that's a pretty significant profile. There could be a conversation on that message board also, and all that stuff. That's all for a future date. I have to make time for all this crap. But also what it would do, the software, I'll write some software up that'll basically attempt to also analyze people's answers and look for contradictions. So if there are two answers that seem in contradiction, the software would attempt to point that out and explain why there's a contradiction. And part of the strategy would also be to premise conclusions. So maybe 4 or 5 questions would lead to another conclusion, and so that would be pointed out after somebody would take the survey. Then it would also tell them that, well, if you believe in these 4 things, you must also believe in these 4 other things, by logical necessity, and explain why there would be a logical necessity to believe in those things. So something like that. Anyway, it's so it's basically, the idea is to facilitate communication, organization, refinement even of the argument. The way this whole style of argument is, it's a little bit flawed. We've always been talking in circles, and certainly in the political sphere, that's always bothered me. It's always irritated me that I've been hearing the same arguments made about some subjects like abortion for 30 years. I mean, they never get to the core issue, which is really, you religious fucks think you have a right to impose your dogma, essentially, your religiously derived understanding on other people. And that's where you violated the idea, anyway, of the Constitution, where you violated the notion of fundamental mutual respect, because you obviously wouldn't want other people with some kind of wacky religion, wacky notion in their head that has no substance, some UFO theory, to be imposing their will on you, their definition of reality on you. And that's the great hypocrisy of the religious bigots. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject too. Don't want to get into that. Don't want to open no cans of worms. So I'm not looking for argument. I'm just looking for assets. So if you can make a playlist and then you can just point to it in the comments, that would be helpful. And if you can, write some questions, that would be great. And if you just feel like answering the questions, just do a list 1 through 25 and yes or no questions, so yes or no answers, and just to let us know where you are. And it can't hurt. So whatever you want, you can throw in there. So I guess that's enough. But I mean, the idea is to consolidate this and refine this, and then I'll make a walking the walk video, spelling it out a little bit more coherently. So that's the plan. Thanks for listening. And if you want to get unblocked, you can also, on the Inmendham channel, you could go ahead and ask to be unblocked. But just ask to be unblocked. I don't want no crappy sentences. You're going to preface it with something. If you don't really want to be unblocked, then don't even use the word unblocked. Just maybe I'll just delete your comments if you say the word unblocked, but don't say it in just some simple sentence, unblock me. If you say something more than that or more complicated than that, then fuck you.